In this segment, I will review some of the terms and concepts that we've introduced since our last exam. This section is on organizations and organizational development. First thing we covered and looked at was job designs. And you see here the 4 different types of job designs. It's important to know the advantages and disadvantages of each. One thing I want to highlight again is the difference between job enrichment and job enlargement. Job enlargement, you'll remember, is just giving more tasks to an individual. Giving them more tasks probably makes them want to have more pay. Job enrichment, on the other hand, gives more meaningful, more responsibility in jobs to people. And hopefully is more fulfilling and more motivating. We then looked at organizational structures. These are the basic organizational structures. Remember that the functional organizational structure is one that is most efficient, has the lowest costs. Product and customer ones are designed to focus and be responsive to either the product or the customer. They're very similar sometimes. Geographic means that different regions, whether it's regions in the United States or regions internationally, have different needs and allows a business to focus on those. A divisional organization structure is one where you have different organizations that are sort of related. Disney is a good example. I might have a division for entertainment. I could have a division for distribution, such as Disney Plus. I can have a division for retail and a division for theme parks. All are related, but they each have their own separate business. And you'll recall that matrix is a combination of 2 different types of organization structures put together and being used at the same time. Results in an individual contributor having potentially more than one manager. Here's some of the concepts we learned that you can apply when discussing organization structures. Remember that the scalar principle says there's a clear, unbroken chain of command. Span of control talks about how many people report to a manager. It doesn't say how many products. It doesn't say the budget or anything like that. It's strictly the number of people that report to a manager. And we talked about the difference between tall and flat organizations. Tall organizations have many levels of management relatively, and flat organizations have fewer levels, probably resulting in a larger span of control. Flat organizations are good because they are more responsive. You have fewer levels of management to go through if there are things that need to get resolved by upper management. As organizations get older, they tend to get taller. As you get more people, you end up adding levels of management. And delegation. Remember, delegation is the giving of a responsibility of a manager to a subordinate. It's not simply assigning tasks to somebody. And if I tell someone that they need to clean the restrooms, that's not delegating. I tell someone that they are to approve time cards, which is normally my responsibility as manager, that would be an example of delegation. Talking about organization design and the concepts that are used in that, in particular centralized and decentralized. You want centralized organizations, you'll recall, when you want to have control over decisions. You don't want decisions to be made anywhere. You might need to control your brand. You might need to control pricing. So you want those decisions centralized. Decentralized is when you want people to be more responsive. And the problem with that is things may then change across the organization. You may not have the consistency that you want. Now, to manage coordination as organizations grow, you can have either a liaison role, task forces, or an integration department. Remember, a liaison is when you assign one person to another organization and have them act in their role there and serve to help coordinate across the 2 organizations. Task forces are groups that are put together for a certain period of time to address a particular problem and then disband. System 1 and System 4 designs are terms coined by Likert from Ohio State. System 1 is a bureaucratic approach where decision-making is done at the top, rewards are done through primarily financial ways. System 4 is very distributed. Distributed decision-making, rewards come in all types, a lot of free flow of information. And now there's a System 2 and a System 3, and you don't really need to know the difference between all four of them, but you should know the difference between the two extremes. Organizations change. Changes can come about because of internal or external forces. And as you probably have seen in places where you work, people resist change. Remember, mushroom treatment is keep people in the dark and shovel them manure. Right? People don't know what's going on, and so they get worried about it and resist change. In here, you should know the difference between threatened self-interests and feelings of loss. Feelings of loss is more a personal nature, interpersonal relationship kind of thing. So dealing with friends and coworkers and things like that. Where threatened self-interests are you personally. You might be afraid of losing your job. It'll affect your commute. It affects your ability to take care of your kids and those sorts of things. Organizational development, OD, has a lot of tactics that get used in trying to help organizations through their change. Diagnostics include surveys. What do people think? What's going on? Team building activities. We talked about these in class. Education. Other things include maybe third-party people coming in and doing exercises, role playing, those sorts of things. And we also talked about how innovation comes through two forms, typically. Radical and incremental. Incremental meaning little piece at a time. Radical means big changes all at once. We also covered human resources. Human resources monitor the legal environment, make sure that you have equal employment opportunity, you don't discriminate. You have to plan your staffing. Remember, succession planning is having a plan in place to replace particular individuals. The CEO, if the CEO steps down or retires or takes a new job, who takes their place? Is somebody trained to take their place? But it's not only the CEO. This can be at all levels. Even first-level managers may have succession planning. Human resources or HR will define the recruiting process. Often not actually doing recruiting, but defining the process for the rest of the organization to follow so that they don't get in trouble with legal kinds of issues. They also will define the performance appraisal process. They might rate people. They might do things like upward feedback. So for managers, getting feedback from subordinates. And a very popular kind of performance appraisal process in large corporations is a 360-degree review, where everyone around a manager or an individual provides feedback. HR will also define the termination process. Recall that the PIP is a plan that a person's put on, typically for about a month, whereby if they successfully complete the plan, they will be considered satisfactory employees. And if they do not complete the plan satisfactorily, they will be terminated. HR defines the compensation structure. Is it a base plus bonus? Is the bonus individual or is it corporate based? Do we have incentive-based compensation? Or do we have profit sharing? HR defines the benefits in a corporation. One of the things I should pause in here and say is that HR just doesn't do this in a vacuum. They look at things relative to other companies. We call this comparison, whether HR does it or engineering does it or anybody, we call this benchmarking. That's an important term to know, benchmarking. You compare your company relative to others or the industry. So the compensation structure will be defined by benchmarking and looking at relative to other companies. Do we pay our people enough? Not enough? Too much? Same thing with benefits. What kind of benefit packages do we offer? What does the competition offer? HR also gets involved in labor relations. They do the collective bargaining. They work the collective bargaining agreement with unions. Unions have different tactics. Recall we talked about picketing, strikes. We talked about management tactics, where management can have lockouts and managers can go to court potentially and get injunctions. We're not going to do here video reviews. We will do these in class. But you should look around in where you work and take a look at the organization and start seeing how can you apply the terms and concepts that we've been talking about in class to places where you work. Good luck on the exam.